My name is Andrew Seguin. I am the founder of Seguin Financial, a bookkeeping and accounting firm located in Cornwall, Ontario. Today's topic, what I want to talk to you about, was the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy version 2.0. So this is the revised version that is now active for periods 5 and onwards. So let's get into it. All right, so version 1.0 is what I'm going to call it. Is before it was a pass or fail motion. You had a 20% revenue reduction, you failed. You had a 35% revenue reduction, you passed. If you passed, you essentially had 75% wage subsidy for eligible remuneration. Now, 2.0, from periods 5 and onwards, even with a decline of less than 30%, you're still eligible for some wage subsidy. How this is going to work, there's now a base component and a top-up component. Your base is up to 50% declined, and you're going to use a factor involved. This factor is initially 1.2 for periods 5 and 6, and it'll decline by 0.2 as every period goes on. So period 5, July essentially, you're going to take your revenue decline, let's say it's 20%, you're going to take that 20% and multiply it by 1.2, 24%. So you essentially are getting a 24% wage subsidy. Pretty straightforward, right? Yeah, good. There's a lot more complexities involved, and we're going to talk about that soon. So 24% is your wage subsidy essentially for periods 5. Now, before in periods 1 through 4, you have different elections, right? Those elections where you're able to do cash or accrual method. Well, that's still now active, but now you will actually do a new election for periods 5 and onwards. So you will now choose whether you use accrual or cash. Before as well, periods 1 through 4, you had to choose whether you're going to go to the year-over-year method. So you're going to compare your July 2020 to July 2019, or you're going to use a different period election, which is the averaging of your January and February 2020. You have the same option of using the elections, but it's going to be a brand new restart for periods 5 and onwards. And whatever election you choose, you have to stick with it for the rest of the periods moving forward. So you still have your cash versus accrual method, and that's important to distinguish because you might be eligible under accrual and not eligible under cash or vice versa. So doing some analysis there is really important. Talk to your accountant, or using the averaging method compared to the year-over-year method might give you different results. Again, look at your financial statements or talk to your accountant to help them guide you. Our firm, for instance, we've been handling all the wage subsidy applications for all of our clients. We've been also assisting non-clients and businesses in the community free of charge as much as possible, just guiding them. We haven't actually been doing their applications, but at least guiding them in the right direction on whether they can or maybe not be eligible for the wage subsidy. So you have your base subsidy, and there's a factor of 1.2, and that declines over the periods like I mentioned. So it starts at 1.2 for periods 5 and 6, and it goes down to 1, then 0.8, then 0.6, and onwards. You also get a top-up subsidy, and these are for businesses who've had a revenue reduction of more than 50%. If you have a revenue reduction of more than 50%, you get a special component formula in regards to your wage subsidy. So you know how before we were saying 1.2 is your factor and decreases? For a top-up formula, it's 1.25, and that doesn't decrease. So that 1.25 will always stay there. And this top-up component can maximize up to 25% additional subsidy. So before there was a 75% max cap, it's possible, depending on your business's revenue reduction, you can actually have an 85% wage subsidy as opposed to a 75% wage subsidy. So there's two different formulas involved. There's a base component and there's a top-up component. If you're less than 50%, you're going to use the base component. And if you're more than 50%, you'll have two different formulas involved. Now your top-up, what's different about this is that your revenue reference period is actually a bit different than year over year, like a month to month. You actually have to use your past 3 months. So if you're in August, you're going to look at July, June, and May's averaging revenue in this current calendar year and compare that to the prior calendar year. So there's a bit different formula involved with the top-up component. So I would make sure to talk to your accountant there or do some research on yourself if you are more than 50% revenue reduction. Okay, so now we have the two formulas there. Let's talk about what else is going on. There's what's called a safe harbor rule, which means that no matter what, you're always eligible to take the prior month's revenue reduction into consideration. So in periods 1 to 4, it would work like this. If you had a 20% revenue reduction in March, remember March was 15% revenue reduction to get your wage subsidy, but you only had a 10% revenue reduction in April. Well, this safe harbor rule, what it does, it allows you to take consideration in April saying, all right, I didn't get a revenue reduction in April for my wage subsidy, but I had March's. So the safe harbor rule always allows you to take consideration the prior month. And that prior month is greater, that allows you to take that greater of. So in this one example I just mentioned, even though your April was less than 30, you're actually able to get the April wage subsidy because of the safe harbor rules for March. Because you had a revenue reduction eligibility for March, you automatically get April. The best way to think about it is this. If you're eligible for this current month because you had a revenue reduction that meets the eligibility criteria, you automatically get next following month. So that was periods 1 through 4, right? Because that's a pass or fail. Now it's different. Like I mentioned, it's that even with the 5% revenue reduction, you essentially pass, but more minimal. So the safe harbor rules now, how they work for periods 5 and onwards, is a little bit different. Well, sorry, it's actually the same in regards to revenue criteria, but it's not a pass and fail anymore. So let's talk about that. So let's say August, you had a 15% revenue reduction, but in July, you had a 30% revenue reduction. Well, if you mentioned, we talked about the 1.2 factor. These safe harbor rules always allows you to take the greater of. So if you only had a 20% revenue reduction in April, but a 40% in July, you're deemed to have the 40% revenue reduction right then and there. So keep that in mind anytime you're doing calculations. Always try to look at your prior month and say, okay, I only had 15% reduction this month, but my prior month was 30. I'm going to use the 30. So you're always able to use the safe harbor rules on the prior month. Let's throw another curveball at you. For periods 5 and 6, there's also special elections or essentially special requirements that CRA gives you. Because it's happening quite quickly, and we're already done periods 5 essentially at this point, they're saying that you can use the greater of version 1.0 or version 2.0. So if you had a 20% revenue reduction in July, well, these new 2.0 rules, you wouldn't be eligible for, you'd be only eligible for 20% times 1.2 or 24% but let's say, that's a bad example. Let's do 35% or make it 30% on the dot. Let's say in July, you had 30% revenue reduction. This new version 2.0 will be 30% times 1.2 or 36%. Well, 36% is not 75%. But what they will allow you to do under these safe harbor rules as well is to take the greater of version 1.0 or version 2.0. So version 2.0 is 36% wage subsidy, but version 1 is 75% wage subsidy, which is the old version between periods 1 through 4. So you're actually able to say, okay, I had a 30% reduction in July, but because of the safe harbor rules, I'm also going to be allowed to take the version 1.0 calculation into consideration. So you're going to take your 75% wage subsidy. So for periods 5 and 6, you're able to decipher which is more beneficial for you. Now, periods 7 and onwards, you have to stick with the 2.0 method, which is taking a factor in your revenue reduction and also using the safe harbor rules on the prior period. Some other news and updates that they've also announced, before there was a 14-day exclusion for non-remuneration. So as in 4 weeks, if there was 14 days of no remuneration, that employee was not eligible for a wage subsidy. Now they removed that. So if you have casual or part-time employees coming on sporadically, rest assured that their wages can be subsidized now. Something else that in consideration as well, they are revising the furloughed employees. These are employees who are not working by getting paid. They're in the process of making updates there. They're also making updates to the eligible remuneration baseline component. Before, in version 1.0, if you were paying an employee $1,000 a week, that's what you were paying them as a salary. But when COVID hit, you brought them down to $750 a week. Well, in version 1.0, you're actually able to get 100% subsidy because it's based on their baseline calculation. So 75% of 1,000 is 750, and if you're only paying them 750, you're essentially getting subsidized for 100%. Well, they've removed that and they made some new updates to the formula, so also take that consideration. They don't want you just to reduce their baseline salary today and get subsidized 100%. So take that in consideration, like I mentioned. Overall, there were some substantial changes. I haven't even talked about all of them. There's updates in regards to if it's a new business, purchase out some assets, or there's amalgamation differences. So there's been some substantial changes there. Also arm's length versus non-arm's length. There's some new updates there as well. At the end of the day, I would highly recommend talk to your accountant, reach out to a specialist, whether it's me, our firm, or someone else in the community. These are very complex calculations involved. We've already applied for almost $1 million with the wage subsidies over the last 4 months. We've been successful in all of them. We have very good documentation, good audit trails, and it's only to the thanks of my team, our clients, and how we communicate with our clients and how we retrieve our information. It's very timely, so I'm very proud of that. And at the end of the day, if you have any questions, reach out to somebody who works with you, whether it's your accountant, bookkeeper, or like I said, someone else in the community. All right. So again, my name is Andrew Seguin of Seguin Financial. Feel free to reach out at andrew@seguinfinancial.ca is my email, or you can check out our website, www.seguinfinancial.ca. Thank you, everyone. Bye.